The Project TT has been reliable lately. This week, however, it may have just lost its streak. To understand the problem, let's retrace this car's steps. This car's week began just like normal, with a new mod. In the last TT episode, we upgraded the transmission by replacing the bleeder block. All of that was in the pursuit of better shifting feel, and today's mod is no different. We've already got a short shifter and upgraded bushings, but there's still one piece of the puzzle that we haven't touched yet. These are billet shifter cable end links by ECS Tuning. These connect the shifting cables to the transmission through the short shifter. To see why my car desperately needs these, we've got to get the airbox off. A few bolts later and you can see the issue. Not only are these the weakest link by being made out of pliable plastic, but mine don't even fit to begin with. Specifically my front to back cable. This car is currently using a piece of metal as a shim to get this to fit properly. Functionally, this works great, but I'm not sure for how long. Today we're going to do this properly by installing the new end links. And the first step in that process is to put the car into neutral. Next, I took the retaining clips off the top of the end links. Once these are off, you can slide the end links off the cables themselves. Before we get too far, however, we need to put the transmission into its locked mode. Depending on what 02M transmission you have, you're either going to have a locking lever or a locking pin. This car has a pin, so once I got the end links off, I locked the transmission. I've done this a few times on the channel, so if you want more detail, I'll link an older episode where we covered this specifically. The gist of locking the transmission is to push gently on this pin at the same time as you push gently on the short shifter. You'll know you did it right when it clicks into place. While I was in here, I took the opportunity to make some changes to my short shifter. This is a 10mm adapter that connects directly to the short shifter. That's the new size that we're going to, so I'm gonna go ahead and swap this out real quick. Let's take a second to talk about how these new over-engineered end links work. Each one has an outer and an inner piece. The outer piece screws onto the inner piece, and the inner piece clamps down onto the shifter cable. You use the screwing motion to fine-tune the length of the shifter cable so that you can fine-tune your gear throws. We'll get to that in a second. The first step in installing these is to attach the inner portion to the actual cables. You'll notice there are 4 holes at the end of this piece. The kit comes with studs for these holes. I can't even describe how worried I was that I was going to drop these and never be able to find them again. These studs are designed to be threaded into the 4 holes on the inner piece. You might be wondering, how do these clamp onto the shifter cable? There is a divot at the end of each of the shifter cables that is the exact same size as these studs, so you can lock this piece in place. Here's what it's going to look like from an inside view, except it's going to be like this for all 4 studs. You also don't have to worry about these studs backing themselves out while you're driving because the outer part of the end link screws over them, so it's not possible for them to come out. The first thing I did was get these loosely in place for both of the end links outside of the car. Then when they were both done, I threaded them onto the shifter cables and tightened them evenly with an Allen wrench. I genuinely don't know if I've ever had to use an Allen wrench this small before on a car. First time for everything, I guess. Once all the studs were tightened, I went ahead and screwed on the outer part of the end link. Once both of these are loosely in place, we're ready to start aligning the transmission. Now we get to move inside the car and set the shifter to the adjusting position. This is another thing we've done to this car before, so this isn't anything new. The first thing you need to do is take the boot off of your shifter, and on the TT that means unscrewing a lot of these screws. We have the transmission locked in a fixed position. Now we need to lock this shifter in a fixed adjusting position. If you look under the shift boot, you can see two holes that line up when you move the shifter in a very specific orientation. You're going to want to put a shifter alignment pin in that hole to keep the shifter in that position. If you don't have one, you can use a drill bit. This is important though. You want to make sure it is as stiff as it possibly can be and you can't move the gear lever. The more fixed this is, the better alignment you're going to have. I now have both the transmission and the shifter in fixed positions, so we're ready to set the cable lengths. The first thing I did is slide the two brass-colored sheaths onto the actual transmission itself so the end links fit properly. Then I adjusted the lengths of the end links by screwing them down so that they were just long enough to remove any slack in the cable and fit properly on the transmission. That's the important part. You don't want too much slack and you don't want too little slack. You want it to be just right. And every car is probably going to be a little bit different when it comes to this. Every time you want to test it, there are two things you need to do. Unlock the transmission by adjusting the locking pin or the locking lever, and taking out the pin in the car keeping the shifter in place. Then you can check all your gears and make sure they feel how you like it. If you're having trouble getting into first, reverse, or second, it's most likely the side-to-side alignment that's not quite right. I suggest backing it out one way or another until you find the one that works best for your car. Remember though, before you make any of these adjustments, every time you need to lock the transmission and lock the shifter. Then you're free to adjust however you'd like. I did this quite a few times until I was happy with how everything felt. I then started the process of buttoning everything back up and getting it ready to drive. It is very quickly becoming winter where I live, and that means that the type of driving I'll be doing in both of my cars is going to be very different. Unironically, next week's weather is forecasted in the mid-30s, which is very different than today's nearly 70-degree weather. I figured today was as good of a day as any to go on a long cruise with a friend. He's bringing his drone, and he's going to give me some advice on using the new camera I got for the channel, so bear with me as I get used to getting good shots with it. At this point, I was really looking forward to taking this car on a longer, fun drive. It had been far too long. The trip around the lake and up the mountain was fantastic. The trip home, however, well, that was a much different story. The car's coolant level light came on, which is a little unnerving if you know the history of this project. I replaced everything in this car's coolant system with new parts less than a year ago. Every hose, the thermostat, the water pumps, everything. I'm really hoping it's just a coolant leak in the system. But since everything in the system is relatively new, that'd be a little surprising. Both of the temperature gauges in the car also showed a normal level, which makes it even weirder. I shut the car down to cool for a bit and we opened the reservoir, which was insanely pressurized. At this point, we were on the side of the road on top of a mountain. What a fantastic place to have issues. I restarted the car and it seemed like normal. The car did not seem to be overheating and the light didn't come back on. Maybe this was just a one-time fluke, but I want to know why. The best and most likely case is that it's a leak. The worst would be something like a head gasket. So we're gonna have to diagnose the car to see what's really going on. First, I have to limp it home though. We'll diagnose this in the next episode. I wish I had a happier ending for you, but that's unfortunately where this episode ends. I've got a few ideas for what actually happened, and we'll be sure to test them in the next episode. I'm curious what you guys think the problem was. Fingers crossed it was just a fluke. Either way, thank you for taking time out of your day to watch my video. I still can't believe just how much support these episodes are getting, and I truly do appreciate it. If you enjoyed the video, learned something, or want to see more, consider dropping a like and subscribing. It's the best way to support me and my content. I will see you guys in the next episode. Once again, thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.